I've colored this wire blue all the way back to the origination also. You always want to use a Sharpie, which I didn't have a Sharpie. You always want to use a Sharpie. It doesn't necessarily have to be blue. It could be black or red, a black or red Sharpie, but I would, or any type of permanent marker. I would make sure that I use some type of permanent marker. Here at school we used a Crayola, which wouldn't be good. We'd want to use a permanent marker in that instance. Okay, so I've got my two travelers, and now it's come through to my travelers, to my three-way switch, and coming back through the common. Now while I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and hook up my grounding. And it's a different color screw, but it's either going to be, it's almost always going to be green whenever you have a grounding screw. And that switch is complete. We would just push that back and button that up. Okay. Now we've come back here and we are traveling back through our common, and the common is coming back here. We don't have to wire it up to our switch because our switch is already completed as far as ungrounded conductors go, but it is going up, and it's going up to the supply side of where our light is. So all we have to do is take our common that's coming back from that switch and go up to our light. So all I'm going to do is tie these two together, and I don't have to do anything fancy. All I have to do is just put a regular old joint on there. Now, in the field, I would do the whole switch and go ahead and button it up and push it back there. It would be complete. Part of the reason why I'm switching back and forth to devices just to show you kind of where the current's going at the same time. Us wiring it up. I always want to make sure you use good form, good materials. Make sure that my joints are consistently tight and I'm doing all the right things. Electricity is not something that you want to have it's always something that you want to do very accurately, and you want to do it the first time. Okay? So that is done. Now we've gone up to our light. We've wired up our light, and I'm going to show you how it wires up in a close-up here. Okay, so we've come in through our source voltage. We've gone through the first common. Okay. Now, if this switch is switched over here, it will travel through the traveler, through this red traveler. It'll continue on through this traveler. And there it will be. Now it's up to this three-way switch here to determine whether it passes. If the switch is over here, it's going to leave the circuit open and the light's not going to come on. However, if it is switched over here, in this position, the electricity will travel through the black conductor. It'll return through the common and back up to our light. So we've gone up to our light now. Our light won't come on just yet until we get the ground dead conductor back down to where it comes from. Okay? So our feeder came up this way, went to the switch, went to that switch, went up to the light. Now it has to return back on the grounded circuit. So this grounded wire comes from the light and goes back to our source, which was the original common that we hooked up to our switch there. And all I'm going to do is the same thing there. I'm just going to make a joint. I'm going to strip those back and put a wire nut on them and tuck them back. This is something that I didn't put in the lesson, but while I'm wiring it, I can tell you this too. Since you have a neutral or a return, or a grounded wire, and a constant hot, if there ever time that you ever wanted to add another plug to it, you have a neutral and a hot here. So all you'd have to do is tie into here, You tie into the 2 wires that I just tied in together and be on your way. You'd be in business. I'm going to do the same thing. Just put a wire nut on that. Tug it back. I always want to make sure when I'm tucking those wires in that I don't accidentally put another wire into that wire nut with it. So I'm always kind of checking those. Okay. Then lastly, I'm going to take these grounds. Now, I don't have enough wires here because I can't connect to this. So what I'll do is I will take an extra grounding wire. I always make sure that I got some extra wire laying around. I just make a hook on it, pow. And I'm just going to hook that around the ground. Now I do have a grounding pigtail. Do is find my screwdriver. We got that. And like I said, my wiring methods, I always want to stay and make sure I stay consistent on them. You know, I want to make my connections tight. That if I'd have put that screw down, it would have kind of spread out where I was going to terminate at. So just always being consistent, making sure your terminations are good. Save you a lot of headache, a lot of liability down the road. Okay, so there we got that. And all I'm going to do is kind of bring that dude around here. I just make a crisscross and I'll tie these groundings together. Now, just for wiring methods and just doing what we were doing, I didn't check the voltage because this is a freestanding wall that has no voltage potential to it. So it'd be like testing that chair for voltage. But normally I always want to test for voltage just to make sure. Never know when somebody's gone and turned something on, maybe a friend, a coworker, maybe another trade that needs power because they're there that day and they need electric to do whatever. Maybe they turned on a circuit. You always want to kind of double check that kind of stuff. Now for added protection too, sometimes I'll wrap electrical tape to make sure that none of these connections, because all of these are potentially ungrounded conductors. I'll wrap a little bit of tape around there and pop them back in. But that's it. That is how we get from our feed voltage to a three-way switch to another three-way switch. And this three-way switch can be as far as you want it to be. You can be it on the other side of the room. You could have multiple switches lined up. You could have, a three-way and however many four-ways you have in between them. And then all the way wiring to our light.